Okay, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, can we have roll call, please, Rob?
Director Zimmer.
Here.
Director Cody. Here. Director Gibson. Here. Chairperson Hills.
Present. Okay, next item is on the agenda is comments by any of the members here. Nothing? Okay, Rob, we'll move to the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are 3 items on your consent agenda today, and there are agendas in the back table if you want to follow along. The first is our typical minutes for 2 meetings, because we did have the short meeting in June to approve the annual report, which has been uploaded to the various websites if folks want to access the final version of that. Our typical warrants and budget update based on your recently approved 2019 budget, and also a $7,800 contract with Cleith Harris Geologists for adaptive management activities. And of course, if folks want to talk about that specifically, feel free to pull that. The last time we did a small contract like that, we did it on consent, but I'm certainly available to speak about that in detail if folks prefer to do that. And that's what's on your consent agenda, sir.
Any questions on the consent agenda? Okay, public comment on the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back.
Move approval of consent. I'll second that.
Any more discussion? Okay.
Yeah, I have a.
Oh, okay.
You're asking for
Yes.
some discussion. I guess on the approval with the contract for Cleith Harris for the adaptive management tasks, I just want to make my normal comment here that I'd really like to see that a draft of that released to the committee a month before the expected time for us to approve that or to provide comments and then approve that.
Agreed. Appreciate that.
Okay. So, is that it?
That's all I have.
I think we have I heard a motion, I believe, in a
I
second.
didn't hear, did I?
Yep.
Oh, Bruce seconded, I'm
Yep.
sorry, yeah.
And I didn't hear would you like a roll call vote, Mr. Chair?
I don't think we need one.
Probably not, but a voice vote would be fine.
So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Executive Director's Report.
Thank you. So this is a verbal presentation of the content of the Executive Director's Report. And I did want to spend a few minutes on some slides sharing the spring 2019 water quality information to focus on what I talked about briefly last time, and the official information is attached to my Executive Director's Report. But just to go through the content of it, we are continuing to work with various funding agencies in pursuit of funding. The one recent success that we had is an IRWM. There was a number of shortlisted projects that at the county level were approved, and there was one project that got through the screening process, our 8th Street well, which is a Program A project for the LOCSD. So that was great news, and we'll get a matching construction fund on that project. And then, as we spoke with the group last time, we have a ongoing discussion at the staff level about the Joint Powers Authority and the way we accomplish projects. The goal is to have a detailed summary of each individual project and a path forward, including programs that are not yet on our active tracking list, programs B and D. So we're having those discussions at the staff level, and I think you'll hear more about that at the subsequent meeting. There's an update on the Los Osos wastewater project. Not a lot has changed there other than recycled water deliveries have started. So we got tired of saying that it's pending. It has now started, and Sea Pines has received about 1 million gallons of recycled water as of the end of June. So that water is coming back and being put to a direct beneficial use. Broderson and Bay Ridge continue to be the primary means of disposal, and connections at the school and all the retrofits necessary to accomplish those are ongoing. And the current update is we think those will be ready by the end of this year to receive recycled water, so not by the end of summer as we had previously reported. There are a few properties that are outstanding in terms of connections, about 1% of the community, and there's an enforcement process that's ongoing with the county. A couple of water conservation fixtures have been updated, a few washing machines, and our first hot water recirculator, but still rebates are available. Those who attended the conservation fair may wish to give an update on that at the end of my comments. And then I'd like to spend a few minutes on these next few slides, if you direct your attention up to the screen there. So in our last meeting, we discussed the spring 2019 lower aquifer monitoring results. Just to remind the community, we have a fairly extensive network of lower aquifer wells that are displayed up there on the screen. The one that's highlighted in yellow in the middle part of the screen is what we call the Pasadena monitoring well. That's a very deep well in Zone E, the bottom portion of our lower aquifer. And we also call that well LA, lower aquifer 11. So it's not the first time you've heard about this well. It's a bit unique in that our chloride metric focuses on the Zone D, the upper portion of the lower aquifer. This well, again, is Zone E. And on the west side, we really aren't producing from that zone. This is a deeper zone. And the deeper you are, the more apt to have seawater intrusion come in because of the density of seawater. And so this is a well we've been watching. And if you look at our chloride metric, you can see that starting in 2005, it climbed steeply, peaking in 2015 and then dropping off abruptly as the community made adjustments, both in the volume of water that we use as a community and in the location where we're pumping. So we definitely saw a direct benefit from some of our management efforts. This is in Zone D that this particular metric is tracking. In Zone E, though, at that well 11 at Pasadena Avenue here in Baywood, we're seeing chloride concentrations that are bouncing around but clearly have an upward trend. So we believe that this is primarily because of the pumping that's going on in the middle part of Baywood, 8th Street, 10th Street, and other locations in relatively close proximity to this well. So something to definitely watch. And if you looked at the proposal from Cleath that we recently approved here in the last item, Cleath is going to be focusing on adaptive management at this location. We think we need to improve our distribution of pumping in the Baywood area and put a closer watch on this particular well, even though it's deep. We're not seeing impacts of significant concern in Zone D, but when you see it in E, it means that it's an early indicator that this is almost like a secondary area to begin watching closely. And of course, the Cuesta by the Sea area is in the middle of those two zones, and we're going to talk about that as a separate agenda item, but we certainly would like to get some data from that area as well. So this is a follow-up. We have some adaptive management measures we're going to be recommending in future meetings as Cleath completes their work, but it's certainly an area to watch in that very deep zone at Pasadena. And then as part of my executive director's report, we have an update on the various tasks that I've been working on. One is the adaptive management, which you approved in the last item. The recruitment process is on our agenda. We'll talk about that. Seawater intrusion imaging, primarily that's stuck in environmental and landowner issues with Cal Poly there. And then for the other activities for stormwater recovery and creek discharge. We have reached out to consultants for proposals on those tasks, and we're going to be bringing those forward in your September meeting, so we'll be able to kick those off. And then there's an update on Sigma, which is essentially the same as last time, other than to say that the comment period has come to a close, and we're waiting for the final determination from DWR, which we expect to be the same as what it currently is, that the Warden Creek Subbasin will be listed as a very low priority under Sigma. That concludes my Executive Director's report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Bruce?
Yeah, just a couple of comments, suggestions. On the monitoring data, I wonder if you could write a short memo on that, expanding on the paragraph that's there, differentiating E from D, and what, as you develop the strategies that might come into play, both in terms of tracking it and in terms of mitigating it. I think that'd be helpful for the file, if you wouldn't mind. And second, just above that, I think we can drop reference to bringing Morro Bay wastewater to the Los Osos plant, as they did get their permit last Thursday at about 10:25 in the evening.
I read that in the press.
It was very, very cool. They moved it right through. I've actually never seen Coastal give such a glowing staff report to a jurisdiction for the development of a project. It was quite exceptional.
I think they were exhausted by that point.
They were pretty well softened
I was
up.
there, so
Yeah.
And so maybe we could just remove that part of your report, that recurring part of your report.
I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, just take that option to bring Morro Bay wastewater to,
Yeah, thanks for tracking that, though. That was...
Okay.
Just one quick comment. So following up on Director Gibson, the monitoring program and the metrics that we're looking at, does that only include D and doesn't include E also? And now we're looking at E, or is that included in the overall?
So it just so happens that our metric wells are, our Zone D wells, and we do look at E and track it. But we haven't focused on it.
Okay, that's what I was under the understanding. I just wanted to clarify that E is not included in what we were looking at previously, right?
We always published all the data, but we didn't necessarily present it in graph form.
So the graph that we looked at prior to this one, did it include the information from, what was it, LA 11?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, I don't think so. I just wanted to clarify that so we didn't misunderstand that, because that, what I interpret from this information, which is really helpful, is we're kind of shifting it. So I'm glad we're looking at that's going to be something that Cleeth is looking at, because really we've altered our pumping historically. We've made some changes, but we've looked at the chloride levels and had an interpretation that we were making progress, but maybe it's more of a shift, and we need to understand that.
Right.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, so the J12, I'm sorry, the 12J1, that's the one that we'll start doing the graph for also? I'm looking at page 2 of 4, that last paragraph. The one where he said staff considers to be concerned about Zone E. I'm just trying to clarify.
12J1 is LA 11. Yes.
Right.
That's our watch well at this point.
Right. That's what I just wanted to confirm, that's the same well.
Yes.
Okay.
It's got literally 3 different names.
That's what I was going to say. It'd be helpful if we used one name or somehow, just so people, when they're looking at it, because he's looking at that L, and I'm looking at 12J1. So we just need to clarify and have consistency through the staff reports.
Agreed.
Okay, so we'll take public comment on the Executive Director's report, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Edwards, and I would like to make a handful of remarks regarding the Executive Director's report, and they actually carry on over into 7A, so I'll probably forego that. But the Basin Plan, as you know, has a number of programs, and As I understand it, staff is going to be preparing a worksheet for each project going forward. And in preparing the priority list, I'd like to make a couple of comments, particularly as it relates to programs B and D. B is the nitrogen or nitrate removal program. Currently, LOCSD has call it a pilot program, as does Golden State, maybe a little more than a pilot program. Those nitrate removal projects are very expensive, and in fact, the basin plan contemplated very expensive program B in the tens of millions of dollars, if you recall. From my perspective, I'd like to de-emphasize program B as we go forward. We're going to have more data come in over the years from the current programs or current operations. But again, I don't think in terms of long-term treating upper basin or zone C water is really going to be in our best interest from an economic standpoint. Secondly, with regard to program D, I would also likewise de-emphasize program D. Originally, the basin plan contemplated that more for development and the build out of the community. I think what we're learning is that the program D projects aren't going to be required, unlikely going to be necessary to really balance the supply and demand. So again, I'd like to de-emphasize B and D and really emphasize program C and the completion of the second of the three wells that were outlined in the basin plan. We think that with the second well, that's going to provide a sufficient yield, perhaps even for build-out with additional conservation. So, again, de-emphasize programs B and D, and let's try to get that second program C well installed. Again, I may have a comment under 7A, but unlikely. Thank you.
Thank you. Oops, excuse me. Any other comment on the Executive Director's report? Okay, seeing none, I'll close it and bring it back. Rob, did you have any response?
No.
So we want to receive and file? We have a motion to receive and file?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to receive and file.
Sure. You want a motion?
Yes, I do.
You got it.
All right, got a motion seconded by Bruce. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll move on to item 7A, Rob.
Thank you. So this is the standing item with basin infrastructure work that we're undertaking. Just to go through briefly the changed projects and the new status. Under Program A, the district's upper aquifer well at 8th Street. As I mentioned before, we did get selected under IRWM to get matching funds for that project, which is good news. There's a little bit of bad news there in that it constitutes about a 6-month delay in the project in order to actually get those funds. We can't start the physical work until February of next year. We can bid out the project. It's been sitting shovel ready. Plans are done. Permits are in hand. But we can bid it in the fourth quarter of this year, but we can't break ground until next year in order to become eligible for those funds. So that's the status of that project. We've also added some cost information about the completed projects, particularly Golden State's efforts, which are substantial, with millions of dollars invested in their blending project and the program C well and in the nitrate removal facility. So you now have better visibility on the cost of those efforts going forward. The program C well that is yet to be completed has been the subject of lots of discussion. And as you know from last time, we have a test well that we're pursuing at the Los Osos Middle School. That is on, even though it's within land that has been dedicated for public use in the right-of-way, it is on school property. And so we do need permission from the school district in order to accomplish that project. Thank you for those of you who have helped coordinate that and give a little encouragement to the school to move that forward quickly. We did hear from their senior management there, and they emphasized that they are working on and understand its priority, but we've not received that approval yet, so we might be reaching back out for continued assistance there because, again, this is the drilling of a test well to determine if there is sufficient capacity even available at that location to warrant pursuing a full production well, which would require a land use permit, coastal development permit, environmental review, and all of that. So this is an important first step, and we do want to complete it this year, if at all possible. You have a brief update on the other projects. We do have the lower aquifer monitoring well and the Cuesta by the Sea as a set agenda item here, so I won't go through that in detail. And again, on the creek discharge, we have a $50,000 effort authorized, and we've got consultant proposal coming on that for consideration, hopefully at your next meeting. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions on item 7A?
Well, question on, let's start with the expansion well. Comment, as I understand it, the next school board meeting is August, if they need board approval of that. Is that going to work for your program? That's an LOCSD program, so I'm curious as to whether we need to try to push something faster than that.
That will work. We do hope to hit that time frame and not let it lag another.
And it's been bid. Has the test well part of this been bid by the LOCSD?
We've not bid it yet. All the documents are prepared. It's shovel ready to bid.
Ready to bid. Okay.
Yeah, and we do need, my understanding is the school board does need to approve this,
Yeah.
not just staff.
Right. I know they.
That's their
pushing.
perspective.
All right. So it's August 18th or something like that. Is
Right.
there?
We thought about going out to bid in advance, but they discouraged us.
September.
They did.
I thought it was, the September meeting was my understanding. Am I wrong?
I haven't heard confirmation
Oh,
of that.
but that's what I've been told is most likely.
Between the
Okay,
two
okay.
connected individuals, we appreciate you continuing to.
We'll see if we can push it to August, Bruce.
Yeah. I mean, that's worth thinking about.
We need about 30 days out to bid on that, and then we can implement within
Okay.
a few weeks of our own board meeting.
And then on the 8th Street well, just the timing of the construction, is that explicit in the grant requirements?
Yeah, it is.
So it's not like we could arrange some bridge financing or something to get that going and be reimbursed by that grant?
We aren't eligible for reimbursement if we jump the gun on that.
It has to be in calendar 2020.
Yeah.
Okay, so the actual work has to be in 2020 per the grant.
The work you want to be reimbursed for, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
because
right.
we pursued whether we could start earlier, but the answer is flat out no.
Right.
Bureaucracy.
It's a slow-moving
Really?
train. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. Mark?
Regarding Program U projects, we have in our budget item 10 that talks about the perched water recovery project. And so we have some funding that's allocated for initial seed money for that project. Maybe we should add that to Program U also, just so that we can track it and have a comment similar to what we have for the creek discharge program, since it did make it into our budget and now it is somewhat considered a project at this point.
I like that.
And then we can also talk about it, how the project moves along, how the funding's going to be managed, and any grant opportunities, things like that come down the road for that project.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good suggestion, I agree. Any other thing? Okay, we'll go to public. Oops,
Actually,
sorry.
back to me just one time. Let me just be sure I understood. You're talking about the discussions on the funding, both for projects and for ongoing administration. And we're going to wrap in the undone portions of this to that discussion as well. I just want to be sure I heard that right.
Right.
Good. Thanks.
Okay, public comment then on item 7A?
Good afternoon again, Jeff Edwards, and it's unfortunate to hear about the school district not having approved the right of entry agreement yet. This has been a protracted matter, I think well over 6 months at this juncture. And just to put this in perspective, what's being asked of the school district is permission to enter the property, enter the easement area to simply drill a test well. It will be returned, restored to exactly its original condition. This is a no-brainer, and yet it's holding up the entire Program C operation. Moreover, what's going to be learned from this test well on Pismo isn't the silver bullet. It's not going to give us all the answers. So we have some hydrologic data from Sage Avenue, which is a little bit southeast. At the end of the day, the 4 alternatives that are on the table right now are going to all have to be looked at on a co-equal basis under CEQA. So we're wasting months, if not years, on this test well. The CSD should immediately start the CEQA process as the lead agency for a new Program C well, the second one. Persist with the test well if you wish, but again, that's not going to be all telling. We're losing valuable time. And at this juncture, a school board meeting, maybe in August, maybe in September, that's unacceptable. It should be unacceptable to you. And again, we're not asking them, for the school district, for any kind of approval. This is a right of entry agreement. It should be routine, yet it's been held up again for many months. So again, I'd urge the Basin Management Committee to perhaps continue with the test well, but let's get on with the main event. The main event is a minor use permit CDP application for a new well. We have 4 alternatives. They all need to be reviewed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment on 7A? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment and bring it back. Does anybody have any additional comments they'd like to provide to Rob?
Would that be the district's process to do this test well and then proceed with having to look at the other alternatives?
Well, it'd come back to the Basin Management Committee.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the district board discussed it in some detail at a fairly well-attended public hearing where they do have the option of proceeding forward on CEQA, but at this point, they've decided to do the test well first.
Right, to see if it was a viable alternative, as Rob already said.
Staff is certainly ready to follow whatever path folks want to.
So you're not required to look at all 4 of them then? You could drop those off,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
But we wanted to, this seemed to be the least controversial
Yeah.
of the alternatives, so we wanted to see if it was viable first.
Right, okay.
Right.
That was the district's perspective.
Good. Thank
Okay, all right. So we can just receive this file and you've got your input. So we'll move on to 7B, Rob.
7B, at long last, the Cuesta by the Sea monitoring well. We have been talking about it since 2004 when we attempted to drill it. The hole collapsed.
Okay, but this committee wasn't in effect then, so we haven't
Right.
talked about it that long.
Yes, your executive director has been wanting this well for a long time.
15 years?
Yeah. So up on the screen here, you see the location of the proposed monitoring well. It's in the Cuesta by the Sea area, and there's a little aerial image with the yellow highlight. The well is on Lupin Street, fronting some vacant property. That property owner has, because like the school situation, they own to the center of the right-of-way there. In this case, they gave us quick permission. I won't say the owner's name, but they've been wonderful to work with over the months and years that we've been working with them. So they provided that permission. County permitted the well. We went through a minor use permit, which went through just fine. We went out to bid on the construction of the well. And just to remind folks how this is proposed to work, a public agency needs to be the owner of that well, ideally, and there's 2 options, of course, the district or the county. district offered to be the lead on the well, both for the minor use permit application and for the construction of the well. And so it went out to public bid, and we got a number of good construction proposals back. And I'll just summarize the three lowest there. We were hoping that it would be less than $100,000, and we do have two bids that are in that neck of the woods, with our local Filipponi and Thompson being the lowest responsible bidder. Certainly well qualified to do this work. We've literally done hundreds of wells with that particular outfit. And so we were glad they gave us a good price. Just to remind the committee, this is a dual zone well comprising both zones D and E. So you're going to get a look at both lower aquifer zones in this one location in the same hole. So there's two pipes coming up to surface, and you'll be able to discretely test both quality and water level at those two locations. There's a couple of things that need to happen to work through this process. The first was that the Soso CSD board had to approve the bid contingent on this committee endorsing moving forward, and they did that last Thursday. And I don't think that got pulled from consent. It was on your consent agenda. And so that step's been done at the CSD level. And then we're looking for committee confirmation here today as to the bid price, since you all are going to be contributing your pro rata share to the cost of that well. In the relationship that the county has with this well, you're looking at deploying CASGIM funds to fund your 20%. And so we had to make sure that the well construction complied with all the CASGIM requirements, and we've done that and confirmed that to county staff. And then if you do take the action proposed today to confirm support for the bids as proposed to you, then there'll be an agreement that will take place between the district and the county to talk about the management of the well and exactly how the nuts and bolts will work. In the meantime, the district will move forward, award the contract, and begin construction of the well. That's how we're proposing to have it work. But before the county can write a check for its portion, there will need to be completion of an agreement. And it'd be a good template for the future if there are other monitoring wells that we look to complete. So you have the bid results attached to your staff report, and the low three summarized here. And staff would like you to approve this construction with the LOCSD as the lead contracting entity. We are recommending that, as consistent with your approved 2019 budget, you still hold aside $100,000 of total construction funds with a 10% contingency in case there are unforeseen items that come up, which does certainly happen in well drilling. So be happy to answer any questions.
Well, I'd just like to add one thing to what you said. The CSD did agree to take on this project, but the other option that we talked about, other than the county or the CSD, was having a JPA, which we decided, and everybody on this committee knows why we decided not to go down that path. But
at this point.
At this point in time, correct, in order to make this move along. But this could be transferred to that JPA if we do put it in effect at some future date.
Well said.
That's all I wanted to clarify. Yeah. Mark?
Yeah. So you mentioned an agreement between the county and LOCSD. And so is there going to be a portion of that agreement that will be between LOCSD and the BMC, or will we get a chance to weigh in on that agreement? How is that? This is the first I've heard about the agreement, so I'm not really sure how that's going to be structured or what the content will be.
Sure, and John may be able to elucidate that a little bit. But essentially, in order to access those CASGIM funds, the county has been entering into agreements with public agencies in order to access those funds. You certainly would be welcome to all the content of that agreement. I think it's primarily to confirm that the county will have continued access under its biannual water monitoring event. But certainly we'd share that with the group. We don't think we need additional Basin Management Committee actions to move it forward. But if you prefer that we bring that back, we'd be happy to do that.
Yeah.
Bruce is probably more familiar with this, so let's have Bruce.
I just, first of all, just clarify that the financial aspects of this are included in the BMC budget, and the contributions to the BMC budget as we negotiated in that multi-step process, put $100,000 in there. The county's 20 is coming from CASGEM, which puts a certain amount of conditions on it.
Sure.
So all the financial aspects of it rest with the BMC to then go ahead and ask LOCSD to go forward. In terms of the operation down the road, I think there's sort of a dual citizenship there. One of them, and Kate Valentine's here from Public Works can correct me if I'm wrong, CASGEM is a public process, so it's public information that we manage on behalf of the public. So all that information is available to anybody, but it's also been funded by the BMC. And so I think inherent in our, constituting agreements, we have everything we need. We have the money in place and we have the structure, it would seem to me. And I don't know if any attorneys want to weigh in on that, but it seems pretty straightforward.
No, I'm just more or less thinking about operation down the road. We just mentioned potentially moving it into the JPA if that's formed. So do we need some like OMOU or some statement of intent of what this asset's going to be used for, that the district is the lead agency, the owner of it, but ultimately it's funded and operated through the BMC or some aspect of that. I don't know that answer, but I'm just
I think
raising it maybe more for our legal folks.
But I think that's a valid point that we may want. I don't know that it has to come back to us, but we want to make sure that the attorneys for all the parties are on the same page with what we're doing.
Well, always, you don't want to be at odds with your
But I would
legal
say,
staff.
I think it's better to kick the can over to them rather than have it come back to us.
I agree.
But again,
I don't know how to put that into a motion to keep this moving. That
We can make direction.
direction to staff with the approval of it,
Okay.
yeah.
When
And-
we-
I'd like to add just one part to what you were talking about. It's
You guys
a
are
little bit
smiling.
of clarification is, for instance, if S&T is going to own part of an asset, this is part of tax accounting that has to be done too. If that's the way that's one of the issues you're talking about.
Right.
Well, that's one of the reasons we went to the county and the CSD, because then you guys didn't have that issue.
Right. So we're not going to own it. It's going to be owned and primarily operated by the district. But at some point, we're making financial contributions to it. So there needs to be some statement that clarifies that, at least for our portion, when we go through our internal auditing for finance and things of that nature. It's clearly understood what took place here.
Perhaps to have access to it for monitoring and testing in your
And
own
we just
right.
want to make sure it doesn't impact your taxes, so that's something we spoke about.
Yeah, so having a document that
Yeah.
would be great for clarification.
So just a point of clarification, County Council John Solver, just in terms of.
Yeah, John, you want to cruise up to the microphone there?
You got to be on the video and the audio.
Yeah, we need your
So
face.
John Solver, County Council, just a point of clarification, when you talk about operation, you're talking about information gathering and the like. I mean, this is a monitoring well, so in terms of your concern, I guess maybe the board or this commission's concern is the sharing of that information, or just wanted to make sure that we're understanding what the point of the concern might be?
Well, not 100% that I can encompass all that thought right now, but just the general fact of we're going to be involved in operating this, because that's part of our operation of the Basin Management Committee, is to obtain this information through contracts or something, and then interpret it. And so there is activity that's involved in the BMC pertaining to this asset that we're also funding. So you put all that together. And so that's why I'd need to defer to my legal, it's in a realm outside of our normal business activities, so I can't really comment efficiently on what else
I think
included.
if you can rationalize, what is it that you're trying to achieve, and we can work through the details of that.
I think that what the ultimate goal.
I think,
would
let's let your legal counsel, I think she understands where you're going here.
Yeah, Jenna Akos speaking on behalf of Golden State. I think what might make Golden State feel a little more comfortable is just a simple, there's an agreement between LOCSD, who owns the infrastructure, and the county. The county wants to make sure that it can, the funds are being properly allocated to a CASGEM well. I think what Director Zimmer is trying to express is concern on behalf of the BMC. So if the infrastructure is owned by LOCSD, just to have a simple agreement between LOCSD and the BMC for continuing access, et cetera. I think that that's cleaner to do on the front end so that we have all of that in place if something were to happen down the line. It doesn't have to be an in-depth agreement, but just something out there.
If that addresses Mark's concern, I think it's something we can have you guys, we'll direct you to prepare and bring it back.
Great, thank you.
That'd be good.
So is it proper then to think of this as a tool that LOCSD will own and maintain? That as far as liabilities of the depreciation of this tool, that the Basin Management Committee will use this tool when it needs repairs and things like that, that's a responsibility of the Los Osos CSD?
That's the budget is provided by the basin. Do you want to go into that?
Yeah,
Rob?
construction of the well is funded right now as part of our Basin Management Committee activities.
But it's part of us, not the CSD.
Yeah, and the CSD's been willing to take the lead on it because it needs a lead.
And that's, I think, a reasonable part of the agreement that we're going to direct is what, if we need to do some maintenance on the well, it comes back to the BMC.
Right.
Yeah, and I think the nature of the agreement would be that legal staff would coordinate as part of this action, multi-party agreement that clarifies those issues, but allows the CSD to move forward on the core construction part because we do have a contractor on the hook now that we'd like to perfect.
Yeah,
that.
no, I agree. And so that specific point would be a great thing to put into the agreement with the BMC.
Well, I think we gave the attorneys good direction here. So, okay, let's go to public comment on item 7B, please. No public comment. Close public comment, bring it back. So we need to approve the construction, or pardon me, the award of the bid. If you want to do that to Filipponi and Thompson, and then we'll just add to whatever motion you guys make the direction to legal staff to prepare that agreement.
So moved. Staff's recommendation plus direction to develop the agreement that we've just discussed.
For the county and BMC.
Well, there's
All
county,
for all parties in the county.
two agreements, county and LOCSD, and then LOCSD and the BMC.
Great.
I've one additional question before we move on. There's, just as a clarification for me, will S&T be writing a check to the LOCSD directly for this? There's
It's funded by the BMC.
okay, funded by the BMC, so it's just part of the BMC budget.
You'll get your normal
Yes.
report
Very
from
good.
the attorney.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. I want to take a roll call vote, so we have that on record. Rob, please.
And the motion
I'll
maker.
second.
Oh yeah, we need a second. That's what I thought. Director Gibson.
Yes.
Director Zimmer.
Yes.
Director Cody.
Yes.
Chairperson Olhilsky.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item 7C.
Great, and this is a brief item. It's a status update on your recruitment efforts for a permanent executive director for this position that I'm currently holding. And I've got a summary here. I wanted to make sure the community understood that we did close the period of interest for the consulting community and did receive 4 proposals, which are posted to the website from 4 consultants, all of which I think have good, solid qualifications, and we're certainly excited to see continued interest in the consulting community with work here in Los Osos. So you didn't scare anybody off. So there's 4 consultants that turned in proposals. They all are local. Monsoon has a private consulting firm in San Luis Obispo, and their principal engineer, Blaine Reilly, would be the proposed executive director. Water System Consultants prepared a proposal with Dan Heimel as the proposed individual. James Bishop, a professional geologist, proposed acting as an independent consultant. And then Brad Hageman with Hageman and Associates from Atascadero. So you definitely have some qualified folks to look at. We talked a little bit about process last time, and from what we've received in terms of feedback from the various staffs, there'd be an interview process for all 4 of these individuals to evaluate them more fully. And that interview process would take place in sort of a closed session environment so that we can speak openly with each consultant without having to have them in a public forum. The various legal counsels have advised that that was an acceptable approach under the Brown Act, with the caveat that when it comes to qualifications, free to discuss that in closed session and to rank these prospective consultants. When it comes to compensation and the agreement for dollars, that would need to come back into open session for discussion of compensation. And so what we are proposing is not to go into an in-depth discussion at this meeting, but to acknowledge that this will go to a subsequent closed session event that we will agendize. We are looking to accomplish this in that first week or 2 in August. We'd like to give this consultant, whomever they are, plenty of time to get up to speed before the end of the year. So we'd like to select in September. And so we would normally skip August in terms of a full BMC meeting, but we'd like to do the interviews in August, make a proposed selection, come back in September to talk compensation and to finalize the selection. So I don't know if you have any vacations planned for the first 2 weeks in August. If you do, maybe just email those to me. Let me know your availability. Some of you already have, and we'll get that on calendar to try to get some time with these consultants. Happy to answer any questions on that process. Legal counsel can also back me up on anything that they want to chime in on.
Okay. Oh, do you have a question? I was going to go to public comment.
Just a comment. So during this closed session, we'll discuss the qualifications, but as far as the compensation, that'll be off limits during the closed session. But I noticed in review of, we asked for a rate schedule as part of the submission, and a couple of those that we received from didn't include that. Is that going to be something that we'll follow back up in and ask them to complete the application process, or did you have any insight on that one?
Yeah, I mean, some of them are just individuals that proposed, sort of embedded their proposed hourly rate in the body of their proposal.
Okay.
So we have all the rates. We just don't have necessarily a statement of what the annual amount would be. And in qualifications-based selection, you usually don't solicit that. And if you do, it's in a separate envelope that you don't open until after you've selected the most qualified applicant. And then you negotiate with them, and if you're unable to achieve an acceptable budget, you go to the next qualified.
Right. Okay, thank you.
And if I might, Mr. Chairman, I think just for the public's benefit, I believe that touching on that negotiation, we can direct staff and a subcommittee of the BMC to conduct those negotiations in private. Right. What we have to do is take action on the final agreement, and including its compensation in open session. So I don't think we need shy away from the specifics of discussing compensation, but I think we have to do it properly. Right. The final decision being a public decision.
And we wouldn't do that with a quorum of the board.
Correct.
We do that at staff level.
Right.
Yeah.
Or
with direction from the board.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. All right. We'll take public comment on item 7C, please.
Good afternoon, committee. Chuck Cecina with the Los Osos CSD, and not to try and delay this process at all because it has been going on for a while. but I wanted to present maybe a potential fifth cost-saving option that's been briefly discussed by our board, but not in any kind of detail. We more or less agreed to consider it. As you know, we're going to be hiring a new general manager, Ron Munns. He's currently on our utility committee, advisory committee. He will be taking over our general manager's duties in early August, and perhaps there's an option for sharing some of his time, which might reduce costs for this position. Just something to consider. He will be coming on board, I believe, August 12th. So that's just something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Richard Heath. Don't consider that, with complete respect. The way the LOCSD smokes through general managers, you don't want to be involved. In addition to their other kind of difficulties, not the way to go. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff Edwards. I would like to associate my remarks with those of Mr. Cecilia. I think this is an opportunity to open up the RFP process so that Mr. Munns can at least file his application. I think he has not only unique professional experience, but he's a Los Osos resident, and I think there could be some cost savings. With all due deference to the remarks about the revolving door at the LOCSD and general managers, I'm quite hopeful that Mr. Munns will be the GM at the LOCSD for the foreseeable future. And I don't think we're going to have the kind of problems we've had with some other GMs, most of which, in fact, entirely of which I think lived outside of Los Osos. So I think it would be good to open it up and at least have his application entertained along with the rest of them. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'll close public comment. Anything else you guys would like to discuss?
I think we direct staff to proceed in the manner that we've directed previously, and look forward to arranging an interview with the 4 respondents to this.
I'll second that.
Okay. Well, I'm saying no, so we got 3-1.
That's fine. We went out, and I think
I'd just like to see Ron be considered. quite frankly.
not at this stage, Marshall. I think that's a mistake for the integrity of the process that the committee put forward, and I think we need to follow through. If for some reason we can't come with a satisfactory result on the proposers that we've had, then we have to go back and open up the process, and we can talk about it.
No, I appreciate what you're saying. I'm just looking at it
time.
from a monetary point of view.
And we don't. I think it's premature, at least, to be talking about that.
No, I'm disagreeing on the
Understood.
for monetary basis
Understood.
is what I'm doing,
Understood.
plus the expertise basis. So, okay.
But we're
Okay,
Okay.
so we have public comments for items not on the agenda?
Mr. Chair, you had a motion and a second also. On the
Yeah,
floor.
it was 3-1.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear the. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't hear Director Cody's. I didn't hear Director Cody's vote.
Okay, we'll take a roll call then.
Director Gibson.
yes.
Director Zimmer.
Yes.
Director Cody.
I don't understand all the issues about the Munns situation, so I'm going to abstain, I suppose, which...
Okay, then I take that back. It's 2-1 and 1.
Director Olhoski. Okay. Thank you. But I will arrange for those interviews as directed.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, public comment for items not on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and adjourn till our next meeting,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
which will be most likely in September. Our next public meeting.
Next public meeting.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.